Yep. Where it go?
Funny. Figure out to create that. What made you put that together?
That clock is fast.
All right, we'd like to welcome everyone this evening to Mapleton City Council meeting, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. We'd like to welcome all of our fire guys here this evening, EMS. Thanks for being here and their families for supporting them. We will begin with invocation by Councilman Beck and led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Egbert.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're very grateful for this opportunity we have to come together as citizens and to discuss important matters to us. We're grateful for where we live and for the freedoms we enjoy. We're grateful for the nation that we live in, and please bless our nation, especially as we go into this election season. Please bless those areas of the country that have been affected by the hurricane, and bless them with the relief and the things that they stand in need of. We pray for understanding tonight, and we love thee and we say the same Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with Chief Jackson, if you want to come forward and take over.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm excited for this. This is a neat thing we have here. As you guys know, a little bit of history, we've really made some changes to our fire department over the past 5 or 6 years and longer, and bringing on some full-time members, and they've just really, every year, just amazed me in how far they come. Even just this morning, watching them on a call, they're just, we really got a good thing going with our fire department right now, and one of the reasons why is the leadership that we have. And tonight, Captain Millett is here, and he's supported by his family and fellow firefighters, and I will say, supported also by Chief Glasgow, who's not available to come tonight. So I appreciate having this opportunity to present Captain Millett with a pretty prestigious award, as I learned more about it today, that there's very few people in the state that have achieved this Supervising Fire Officer Designation Award. And actually, I'm going to have Captain Millett come up and stand here while I read this. And I'm going to read what was sent to us by the authority that oversees fire certifications. Jeremy Millett has been awarded the Utah Supervising Fire Officer designation. This designation is achieved by documenting a comprehensive body of career development classes, higher education, certification, competencies, and experiences based on criteria developed by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. The program was then adopted by the Utah Commission on Fire Officer Professional Development. Jeremy Millett has demonstrated his commitment to professionalism by self-improvement by following an ongoing path of professional development. He has fulfilled hundreds of hours of training, education, and experience to meet the requirements needed for this award. Please join me in personally thanking, and I'm going to thank him too, because this guy squirted water on my grandma's house first, and grandma's house still stands, and I've watched him respond to a fatal crash we had a couple years ago when he wasn't working and was the first one there. And I was just say, I feel lucky that Jeremy Millett's here with us. So please join me in personally thanking him for his hard work and dedication to such a valuable program and to serving the firefighters of Utah. So we really appreciate you, Jeremy.
Stand here and take a picture of the certificate.
Speech, we want.
Chief, go over by him. Stand up here, guys. Hold on. Come back.
I should have said this while I was up here, but certainly want to recognize his family here and the hours that they've sacrificed for him to put in the training and dedication to us. So we want to say we appreciate his family too, make sure that's noted. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And I've also seen Jeremy in action, and when he's dressed in uniform and when he's not, and he's all business all the time. And, you know, it wasn't that many years ago that we didn't have full-time captains, you know. It's only been about 6.5 years. And I have not seen or heard of anywhere in the state that has been able to accomplish what we have in such a short amount of time. And I hear it from cities all over. Everyone knows about us, especially here in South Utah County, even in North Utah County. And you know some of those guys up there, you know what I'm talking about. And they absolutely are just astonished at what we've accomplished. And, you know, we can sit up here and give you funding and give you beautiful equipment, but that does nothing if you don't go use it right. We're not the right people. So thank you for your hard work, Jeremy, you and all your team, and the rest of you guys that are here. Countless times over the last 6 years, we've had people come and give thanks because you guys have saved their lives. And they stand at this pulpit and and tell us thanks for saving their lives. And you guys are the ones that do it and did it. It's one of the most important things we do here in the city is fund you guys with the right equipment and right manpower, but we got to have the right leaders, and luckily we've got them. So, Jeremy, thank you. Appreciate you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Chief Glasgow for inspiring me to do this, because he's the one that just got his not too long ago, and so then it left me basically no choice but to keep up.
Yeah.
And then second, I'd like to thank all of you because I live here in the community, thank you for everything that you, just like everything the mayor just said, supporting us, giving us the funding we needed, or that we continue to need. And I mean, it is highly, what we have here is highly sought after, especially for the amount of money that we put into the program, which is, you know, thanks to all of you for supporting that, because we see what happens in communities close by when the fire department, the police department is not supported by the city council and the mayor. It's a nightmare. So thank you guys and appreciate it.
Thank you, Captain Millett. Thanks for coming to support him, guys. All right, we have a public forum, but I'm just going to explain. On public forum, we have 6 individuals who signed up. If you are wanting to speak to an item that's in the public hearing, you don't have to speak now. You can wait till that time and speak directly to that item. If you'd still like to, if you're one of the 6 that signed up and would like to speak on something else and want to do that now, you're welcome to. All right, seeing that there are none, we'll move forward with the meeting as planned. We'll look for motion on our consent agenda item, approval of city council meeting minutes from September 8, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 18th, 2024.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilman Beck and a second by Councilman Carlson.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Great, we'll move to item number 2, which is a public hearing to hear arguments for and against the issuance of a ballot proposition number 5, Mapleton City, Utah RAP tax election on November 5th, 2024. Now, obviously, we're not voting to pass a RAP tax. This is simply the option to put it on the ballot for this coming election. So, Mr. Euler, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to touch on just some items that we've discussed before tonight's meeting. We have proposed a RAP tax to the public. So essentially what that'll do is for every $100 spent in Mapleton City, 10 cents will be added onto the existing sales tax. That 10 cents will specifically be used for recreation, arts, and parks programs that are approved through a process with a committee that's formed of mostly residents and then a council member and some city staff members. And the expected revenues that we would gain from that would be $125,000 is our estimate for that. And I wanted to discuss kind of the timeline of this RAP tax and this proposal. So on August 7th, the city posted for our residents to submit arguments for or against the RAP tax. That notice was posted on our website and our public notice websites. And we also sent that in the newsletter that residents could do that. On September 2nd, the arguments were due to the county, which was then provided to our recorder. There were no arguments that were submitted against, and the argument for was written by our mayor and council. On August 1st, or possibly even sooner, last week sometime, the residents received a voter information pamphlet, which includes all the information for the RAP tax, some frequently asked questions, the public hearing, tonight's public hearing, was it included in that, and the language for the actual proposition, so that residents can be familiar with that language and understand what they're voting for when they fill that ballot out. And then as well in October, we also included in the mayor's message that the arguments for and against, we essentially included this pamphlet in the mayor's message, as well as tonight's public hearing. Tonight is our second public hearing for the RAP tax. And then on tomorrow, after we've heard any arguments for and against, we will post the arguments on the city website, on the public noticing website, all the required locations that we're supposed to post that. And then, of course, on November 5th will be the election where our residents can vote for or against the proposition. And then on November 19th, there's a 40-day contest period where they can go through the process of contesting the election results. And after that time frame, then it'll go into effect, and we'll start collecting that, I believe, for next calendar year. So I'll turn the time back to you, Mayor.
Is there any questions for Bryce before we get started?
Yeah, I had a question about how the committee is chosen. You mentioned some council members will be on it, but do we know how, is that a formal application, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we'll go through the process. Usually it's an invitation per your recommendations, per staff's recommendations, per the public's recommendations. People can definitely ask to be on the committee, but it still has to go through the process. Those proposed names would then be brought to the council, and you guys would have the opportunity to select through that. And I'll get you exact details on that, but that's kind of the process. And
Bryce, is the process prescripted by the state law, or is that a next step that we will take if it passes, that we will then outline what that process is? How much is prescribed by the state?
it is prescripted by
Is
the
it?
state
Okay.
law, yeah. Logan, do you have anything to add to that? Logan's actually a member of the Spanish Fork RAP Tax Committee, so.
Yeah, I think one important note on that is the city council liaison, city staff, anybody that is representative of the city is a non-voting member. So we are simply there to just help guide discussion, let a RAP tax committee know that they're advisory in nature. Everything that they do is a recommendation to the city council. City council then goes through the approval process to distribute funds. So the citizen committee is put together, but then as a Parks and Rec staff member and a city council staff member, city administrator, whoever that is, we are simply there to help talk through what the funding could be used for, but we are not able to vote on that. That is all voted by the committee.
Logan, how many are on the committee that you sit on?
I believe there's 7 in
Oh,
Spanish
just to
Fork.
give an, I would assume.
Yeah, there's
that's
7 at large and we represent different geographical locations in Spanish Fork. And then there is 2 Parks and Rec staff members, 1 city council member, and then administrative rep.
Great, thank you.
I had another question about the process. So the argument's due by September 2nd. What, is that a state law that it's posted at certain places and by a certain deadline? I don't know if you can help with that.
Yep, so per the state code, we are required to post notice that residents can provide us with arguments for or against the tax. And then we've posted those in the required locations that law asks.
Is there, I don't know if there's any flexibility if, like, let's say there were arguments that, missed the deadline but want to be on the ballot. Is it too late for that, or is it a possibility to extend that deadline?
Not that I'm aware of, but tonight is that opportunity. Tonight's the opportunity for them to come and voice their opinion against or for the RAP tax, and then we will post tonight's arguments in the same places. So the point of it is to give residents the opportunities to, one, voice their opinion, but then provide input to the voters. We've got 14,000 people in Mapleton City that have opinions, and we want them to understand what they're voting for, first off, but then they get the opportunity to vote for it or against it.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
And just to clarify as well, so items that would have that tax applied to it, so services within the city, like, I've Xfinity right now, would my bill have 10 cents for added, if the RAP tax passes?
So everything that you pay sales tax for in Mapleton City currently will have the 10 cents added, other than food and necessities. So your food taxes will not increase here in Mapleton City, just other items, other commodities.
Everything that the state has prescribed, that the state collects the sales tax on, including catalog orders.
Yeah.
Is catalog a word used?
Online shopping.
E-commerce,
Commerce,
that's it.
yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Bryce? Okay, Bryce, thanks. Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing item, so we will now open it to the public to just come forward at the order which you would like, and then we'll give everybody 3 minutes to give their comment, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Our family's lived in Mapleton for a decade. We love Mapleton because of the large number of good people which are here.
Can you state your name?
I'm Doug Hamilton. Not that you guys need to know that. Over the last decade, we've been witness to uncountable acts of kindness in all forms. My spirit's been buoyed to know that such groupings of good people exist. We need to be an example to the world. Any reasoning suggesting that somehow we need to be a lesser city so that we can be like another city lacks merit. We should never want to be a lesser city. What I know for sure is that the good people in Mapleton would never even think to reach their hand into the pocket of a neighbor who's struggling with needs to finance their own personal whimsy. What I also know is that the cost of housing, the cost of electricity, the cost of water, the cost of food, and the cost of an ever-burgeoning weight of government is bringing too many good people in Mapleton to where they are having to make difficult choices about which needs they can even afford. I expect such economic difficulty will get worse, and few of us are going to avoid it. At this time, and with this background, we've been presented with a proposal to inflict a tax on ourselves to finance a laundry list of frankly whimsical wants. There is no meaningful regulation of the money that I can tell. I heard what was said. I understand there's a process, but at the end of the day, we're just handing out money. Just a hope that we'll somehow meet these whimsical wants of what will likely be only a small minority of our citizens. Indeed, those struggling to meet real needs will likely not be able to engage in any of the high-minded, promised community connection, as that is the reality in homes where worries of meeting needs rule their hours. Thus, what is proposed is a tax to finance an unregulated slush fund that will ultimately indulge the whimsies of those who already have at the expense of those who do not. It would be difficult to conceive of a more selfish, regressive tax. I, for one, cannot in good conscience take any of the shiny things promised to be purchased using this unregulated slush fund, as I know that such would be purchased at the cost of my neighbors who cannot even meet needs. I trust that the good people in Mapleton will also choose not to satisfy their whimsical wants at this disgusting trough that is so costly of those in need. Frankly, it's shameful that such a selfish, regressive tax has even made it this far in Mapleton, as it offers to swap out our motto of small town, big hearts, for our surrounding neighbors of overtaxed, overdeveloped, and overindulged. What a small bowl of pottage at such a great cost. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Doug, I'm glad that you came. I'd like to say something real quick to Doug, if I could, please.
Yeah.
Doug, I'm glad you came. And in front of, because I'll explain why. And I'm glad everybody's here so I can say this. Recently on a Facebook exchange, which we all, I think, can agree that Facebook is a dumpster fire.
I don't think we
Of
all
which-
agree that. I
Okay.
think it's a great place for people to
Okay,
converse.
that's fine, Doug. I made an assumption that an individual's comments, I assumed erroneously that it was Doug. And rather than give Doug the respect that I want to be shown, I called it out and made an assumption on Facebook, asking if his name, the individual's name, was Doug. And it wasn't, and Doug found out and called me out on it. And I told him, if you'll come tonight, I will give you a public apology. So I apologize, Doug, that I did not give you the respect that I hold myself, to the same standard that I hold myself to. I got sucked into the Facebook, what I think is a Facebook dumpster fire. So I apologize, Doug, for doing that. I should have given you the respect of a phone call if I suspected that that individual was you by a different name. So I apologize for that, and I'm glad that you came tonight so that I can not only apologize privately, as I have done, but also publicly. So I hope you'll accept my apology.
I accept your apology,
Wonderful, thank
Leslie,
you.
and I appreciate it.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to say as well, Doug, in the quest to be an available and accountable public official, I've chosen to be on Facebook as well, and I make those same mistakes, and I wish I could not make those mistakes. I reviewed our social media policy beforehand, and there's no policy in there to not be a knucklehead, and sorry that I was a knucklehead as well. So just want to give you my apology as well.
I very much appreciate it. I would hope that each of you would understand that never will you hear from me that it's not clear it's coming from me. And as you both know from my phone call, I have no problem saying what I think. Sorry about the words.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
I am here tonight.
Can you please state?
State-
I'm Mackenzie McDaniel. You're welcome. I am here tonight during the last hour that my children are awake. I worked today. This is valuable time with my children. To be told that you will only listen to me if I am here every other Wednesday on the last hour of the day that my children are awake is disgusting. To have my emails ignored, to be publicly shamed and defamed on social media is despicable. Now we get to my statement. The most often repeated pro-argument for Proposition 5 is from the mayor and has been repeated on newsletters and the Truth in Taxation mailer. Neither publication even acknowledged the other side. The pro-argument states, because Springville, Spanish Fork, Provo, Orem, and others have this tax, we should too. With all due respect, just because my neighbor's kids have a toy doesn't mean I go buy my kids that toy. If you want to compare us to other cities, let's compare us to other cities. Provo has 113,500 citizens. Orem has 95,000 citizens. Springville has 36,000 and Spanish Fork has 44,000, with room to grow. Mapleton is a city of 14,000. Per the city manager, we can only ever expect to grow to 28,000 due to geographic constraints. We are blocked to the south by the canyon, to the east by the mountains, and to the north by Springville, the west by Spanish Fork. In order to have Provo-level amenities, the citizens of Mapleton would need to pay almost 4 times the amount of taxes. Due to the massive populations of Provo and Orem, these cities are incomparable to us and should not be used to compare taxation use and rates. Mapleton is geographically locked. We will always be a small town. We are closer in size to Spanish Fork and Springville, but we'll always be smaller than them. So why can't we have the same toys as them? The difference is commerce. Both Springville and Spanish Fork have freeway exits with shopping off the freeway, making their commerce centers available to other cities in Utah. Highway 6 in Spanish Fork is a thoroughfare for out-of-state traffic, bringing sales tax revenue from people coming from out of city and state. Mapleton does not have a freeway exit, nor does it have Highway 6, and it does not have a commerce center. There is no reason for citizens of other cities or states to be spending money here. While this tax is a way for Springville and Spanish Fork to accrue funds from Mapleton citizens who use their amenities but do not pay their property taxes, it will not work that way in Mapleton. The city council states that they want to level the playing field. I'm coming from the mailer on that one. This is not true, as Springville and Spanish Fork citizens have no reason to bring their money here. On the question of why there's not businesses here, there's zoning issues and yada, 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 but the larger issue is that businesses don't want to be here. It's not a great place for business. We don't have a freeway exit, we don't have a highway, don't have a commerce center. We're probably never going to have a big business center here. The REP tax will not generate much revenue. That slide was missing the low number there. You said it was going to generate $125,000. The mailer actually said between $75,000 and $125,000. Looks like you're a little hopeful on that slide. This will be largely accrued off the internet purchases made by citizens in Mapleton, not from out-of-state individuals. This money would only buy 7 to 10 opinion polls for the community center that you guys sent out. On a city level of spending, this money cannot go far. We have been given no specifics regarding how the money would be spent. RAP is a huge umbrella of things that would qualify, or how the Citizens Council would be selected. I've never heard the word process so many times in my life without actually defining a process. I do not trust this council to make these decisions honestly or in our best interest should this tax pass. Rather than focusing on what other cities have that we don't, let's focus on what we do have. We left Orem because it was not a good place for us to raise our family. After a 2-year search for our long-term home, we settled on Mapleton, not for its amenities or even its potential for amenities. We settled here because of the people. I'm not afraid of my daughter getting run over by a car, my home getting broken into, excessive traffic, etc. I'm very close to nature. I'm close to businesses, but I don't have to deal with the traffic from businesses. Small town, big heart. Being geographically limited, we can only ever be a small town. Big heart does not mean big fancy amenities, it's the people. My neighbors have been to me the example of what this city's motto is. Let's welcome the growth, not the way Provo did or Orem did or Springville or Spanish Fork with their fancy amenities. We're not them, and we can never be them. Let's lean into what makes Mapleton Mapleton. We are unique. We are a unique people who care about our neighbors. I care both that people want amenities and that additional taxation runs the risk of pricing people, especially those on fixed incomes, out of their homes. There are ways that we as a community can come together to address both issues, and an RAP tax is not the way.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dane England, for the record. I had a chance to talk to Corey after, and thank you, Corey, for taking some time to talk to me. A couple things about this tax that I strike as a little odd. If you read under the proposition number 5, the second paragraph, it says it can or may, but are not limited to live theater, choral groups, bands, festivals, and youth arts. I think you'll find every one of those, if not most of them, every one of them possibly, at our school systems. So why don't we just let them fund that? They're already getting the tax money for it, so why are we getting double dipped on that? And then the question I think for Corey, I think you might be able to answer, your finance department. The other one it states, it's funny, but not limited to parks, playing fields, courts, trails, bike paths, splash pads, swimming pools, and performing arts center. Isn't that already part of the budget? So to go back and do that, is that a part of your budget already, to go back and rehab those and do that? And if it is, why are we doubling down on it? And I agree with a large part of what was already been said, is in a time when we're paying almost record inflation, when people are living, I'm one of the people they mentioned that's on a limited income. And I talked to Corey about this. My grandchildren live close to me, so they come and say, hey, Papa, can we go do this and can we go do that? Which I'd like to do. But I have a fixed income and I have a pie. So when that pie is full, it's full. So I have to find the money someplace else. And I'll throw it to you what I threw to Corey. I'd be happy to volunteer to find $125,000 in your current budget. I'd be happy to do that. My background is not finance, but it is business. And I made it through some of the worst economics that we've ever gone through in 2008 to 2010 in California, when we really had to knuckle down. So my encouragement to you as a city council is to really take a look at, is it needs that we have or is it wants that we have? And if it's the wants, maybe we need to pass for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Passy, and been a resident for about 6.5 years. Love air. I'm probably going to offer a slightly different opinion to what you've heard so far. My background, I retired a couple years ago in local government. I feel your pain more than you may know. I've been at this type of podium before. I've been in these chairs before. About 15 years ago, I assisted my local government at their request to do exactly what you're doing, and this is a first ever RAP, I understand. And so they did it, and it was put to vote, which was a very democratic thing, and it passed by over 60%. It was the will of the people to do so. And I can attest that it can do wonderful things for your community, things that are otherwise difficult to fund, or things that are not popular to fund otherwise, like adding it to a property tax bill, and we know how heavy and onerous that can feel. I worked in finance, that's my background. And so just to go a little bit further, it is a wonderful thing. I actually now, in a very part-time way, assist another local government as their employee, and they're coming up on a 10-year renewal of the RAP. As you know, these things sunset after 10 years, and it, for them, as an observer, I've never voted on a RAP. I'll vote November 5th, but as an observer, in the know and knowledge of government finance, they can do wonderful and amazing things. Just to say, as kind of a historian of this now. So in that sense of the word, I generally support them, but like everything, there's devils in details, and it really boils down to what you really intend to do with it. Some things I've observed is that sometimes communities who implement them pursue facilities that they maybe even with the RAP and with other resources can't really afford, and so they wind up overspending the RAP and starting to put burdens and hooks into property tax and other things. I would caution greatly against even going anywhere near that fence line. Whatever you have, if you have 75 to 125K per year, make double, triple sure that if the citizens do, as a majority, vote for it, that you live within its means and not create further burdens. I know communities much larger than Mapleton, where they pay on their property tax bill for a facility. They also pay a RAP tax for other things in the communities. And then when they go to the facilities, they pay an admission fee. So bam, 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 layer, 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 fee, 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 tax, tax, tax. So just be really careful as you put it together. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
My name's Joshua Zane. Been a resident since 21. First time doing one of these, so if I mess up, I apologize. But I just had like more questions. So I In applied math, so I have two degrees, working on a third. First degree is in applied mathematics. Second degree is quantitative analysis of markets and organizations. So I kind of go into the econometrics of things to figure out how to quantify and solve problems. Seems like you guys have a problem that you guys are trying to solve, and you're taking a tax approach, which is fine. And then I'm working on a master's in finance, and then eventually a PhD, but that's down the road. So first questions I have are kind of like the quantity. How you guys able to track the quantity of the data to project your $75,000 to $100,000? Is that data good data? Is it not? It seems like if it's just taxes coming, like the 10 cents coming from every resident for e-commerce, then you'll probably benefit from people who make more money, but that might not benefit the lower income people. So for starters, I'm not for taxes. Taxes usually increase over time, like everything else in life. But then there becomes a problem of money going to where it actually needs to go. So my kind of question is, why are we not trying to utilize other debt instruments to raise the capital needed, to raise the money to repay your goal over this? So again, math major, so just crunching a few numbers. If you guys try to raise a few $million, I think citizens might be able to help out with that. I went to the census, and 2022, there was 2,900-ish people in Mapleton. Times that by 3,000, which is the average property tax, you end up at $38 million and some change. You divide that by 3, you end up at $12 million and some change. You put the $12 million into something that's very safe, like let's say a 30-year treasury bill, and we'll say 3%, that's $389,000 a year in perpetuity that you guys could keep on reinvesting. So my suggestion is maybe try to raise money, throw a fund, and then people with finance degrees, they get paid the big bucks, and they like to make their money off of that spread, but then they can manage it, and it's more money coming in than what you guys have projected if you can hit that finance goal. The other thing I thought about is maybe allow more pictures of what the projects you guys are trying to help like build in the community, if it's a must or a need, and then allow the community to help out and volunteer if needed. Maybe save some money on labor, and I don't know, I'm a big believer that we kind of choose where we live because of the community, and I'm thankful for my neighbors and this community. They've been a great help, and I think given the opportunity, I know me and my neighbors would love to help out in the city where we live and we take pride in, but I don't think a tax is the way to go about it. But that's just my 2 cents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Raymond. I love living here in Mapleton. It seems like this RAP tax is kind of a symptom of not having a lot of revenue coming in from commercial development in this community. I know property taxes don't really bring that much money to communities. But to increase the quality of life in this community, I'm not opposed to a small tax increase. I think it's a good thing. I think how that money is spent is very critical. I think having the right group together to make the right decisions would be very critical. I'm assuming that there's already a need for trails and some of these amenities that you're trying to build out, and I don't know exactly what those are, but I would encourage the city to lean on the MAG as much as they can to pull some resources from them and from all other sources, and so it's not entirely reliant on this fund. I don't think that what it's asking, I mean, any taxes, nobody likes paying taxes. But if it's for the good of the community, it's going towards good things, then this is something I support, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for letting me address you. My name is Clint Dixon. Is it appropriate to ask a clarifying question about one of the things that this funding can be used for?
Yeah, you can ask the question. We'll note it down, and then we'll have Bryce come back up.
Okay, my question was just like the bike paths, does that like mean bike paths or bike lanes on the roads themselves? You know, and I guess if that can't be addressed now, just wanted to share my opinion on it. You know, it was shared earlier tonight that someone's not afraid of like their kids being run over in Mapleton. You know, it's a small group, and in a way I am. So I live within a half mile of the school, Mapleton Elementary, just east of it off Maple and 300 East. At the time, the only way for my kids to get to school is on either Maple Street, just going down west towards, you know, the main city block and then to the school, or, well, there is no other way. Like, if you were to go a little more north and off 400 North, you know, just across from our building here, you know, that's how I got here. There's a sidewalk on the west side of the road, but not on the east side. And so if my kids, like, one of the issues, my kids, I have a daughter who's 9 and a son who's 6. You know, my daughter is more adequate at riding a bike, but my son's just learning. So for now, we're trying to escort them to school, right, until they're a little more sure about getting there and everything in the morning. It's just, there's not a really good way. The sidewalks on 300 East, like the south part, some of the times there's not a sidewalk, it's just dirt and gravel. The sidewalk's not level. It's not super straight when you get in front of, I don't know if it's like, not the fire department, but there's just a gravel driveway with potholes and things. And going to school, it's maybe okay, but coming back from school, there's probably about a couple hundred kids leaving school all at once. And there is really no bike path. There's maybe a bike path on the west side of the intersection, but the east side, there's no bike path. And so all the kids are sharing the same road, the sidewalk. My son's just, you know, they're trying not to hit the kids who are walking or joggers. You know, there's really no good way for them to go fast or dodge everyone. And so my son's either hitting people, trying to alert them, or maybe trying to ride on the shoulder, which is not safe. You know, he's just young, and we sometimes fear a car gets kind of close and everything, and it's just like, I'm afraid for him. And if there was like a sidewalk or like a bike path on the, if you were going on Main Street North, if there was like one on the east side of the road, you know, they'd be able to ride their way down to the crossing guard and be able to make it safe, or even if there was somehow like a crosswalk put in across Main Street with the flashing lights when someone pushes a button so it alerts everyone to slow down or stop, my kids can then ride to the other side. And so I'm not sure what the language, if this includes bike paths on the roads, not necessarily sidewalks, but something for my kids to have to get ride to safe school, I would be in favor of this. You know, as it talks about, by law, after 10 years, the RAP tax sunsets, but I hope that we could use that to create something that makes it lasting for my kids and their kids to be able to, you know, enjoy the benefits of a small town and be able to walk or ride to school. And just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Excellent. Will you state your name one more time?
Clint Dixon.
Oh, thanks, Clint.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Morgan. I'm a resident here, happy resident of Mapleton. And I would like to thank the City Council for your considered and thorough fact-finding relative to this project and the solicitation of citizen input with respect to this RAP tax. Moving forward incrementally with what I think is a very, very low dollar amount for the tax, and constituting a committee that includes citizenry is admirable. I think your process has been stellar. I think your motives are excellent in terms of serving the needs of community members here and finding a relatively easy way to do so, a relatively inexpensive way to do so. In the past, I've served on 2 city recreation committees, and so I'm familiar with how the City Council works in terms of working with citizenry, and I can attest to everyone here that my experience of the City Council and how they move forward in terms of funding projects in terms of soliciting input, in terms of prioritizing citizens' wants and needs, has been stellar. And I completely support the RAP tax.
Thanks, Carol.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ryan Orr. I too just want to take a moment to say thank you to each one of you guys and for your hard work. I know it often goes unnoticed, but it's appreciated by many. Councilman Beck, Councilman Jones, or Councilmember Jones, Councilmember Egbert, I appreciate your online engagement through social media. And I think it's important to have that line of communication with the citizens in whom you serve and who have elected you to serve on the council for this city. So I encourage you to please keep it up. I am in favor of this RAP tax. I know and I sympathize with those who don't like taxes. I don't like the idea of new taxes. But what a RAP tax can bring and the way that it can benefit a community of all ages, and especially our children, the benefits far outweigh the small monetary value of what it's going to cost us. So I'm going to stand here today and say thank you. I hope it makes it to the ballot and that the citizens of Mapleton City get to vote on this come November 5th. I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
Resident of Mapleton, my name is Tim Shear. I've got a couple questions for you with this RAP tax. This RAP tax is basically gets a percentage of every sale in Mapleton. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. We'll
Does
have
that
we'll have
include-
Bryce clarify that.
Will you clarify that?
Keep going. What's your other questions?
This question includes, does that include the sale of property?
No.
Does not. So since Mapleton is basically landlocked, we have no commercial business. There will be no commercial business because all of the property essentially is spoken for by developers for real estate. You don't have the chance of getting commercial property in here to offset or get even a balance of commercial property taxes versus residential property taxes. It will never happen. There's not enough land in Mapleton available to do so. I know because I develop things like grocery stores, centers, and things like that. I know exactly how much land it takes to develop that and how much revenue it takes. There's been talk of Harmons possibly looking at Mapleton. I talked to Harmons 10 years ago about coming to Mapleton because it was growing, and they have a development of a small neighborhood market that would fit fine. Problem is, it takes 15 acres to develop, put a Harmons of that size in there as an anchor store. You don't have that, okay, in here. And the reason you're never going to have commercial property taxes to at least balance out the residential is because there isn't enough room. You can't get the centers like Spanish Fork or like Springville have done. So it's not going to happen. Where are you going to put this? We have a small center here. Are you going to make a main street? I come from California, where the development on that side is an equal balance. So this RAP tax, okay, great. But it's not going to, I don't see it as putting a dent into offsetting where Spanish Fork or Springville, where those residents can go use that. You say like a library or something like that. Why? Spanish Fork just built a brand new library. Springville's isn't that old, okay? And how many people actually utilize the library anymore with the internet, okay? There was talk about on there about the recreation center for softball and for volleyball and for all of these other activities. Well, I'm sorry, if you're gonna join that and you wanna be on a team, a competitive team, then pay a registration fee, okay? Don't put it off to everybody else. And the other thing I have a problem with this RAP tax is usually people develop a budget for a specific item. And as one of the earlier speakers said, that this is nothing but a slush fund. It is a slush fund. So there's gonna be a bunch of money in there, And then the city council is going to say, well, let's lose this for that, let's lose this for that. I'm sorry, but the rest of us budget accordingly, like our household budgets. We have something we want, we budget for that accordingly, we have a plan, we're not going to go over that. And that's what I have a problem with this RAP tax is, it is a slush fund. If you want volleyball teams, if you want Parks and Recreation to do something other than maintenance, which is already in the fund, like was mentioned before, then come up with a budget, okay? Come up with a budget this year so we can vote on something next year and say, okay, this is what we're putting that money towards. Not towards this big slush fund that either the mayor or the council members decide, well, we think that's a good idea because our friends or people that we talk to would like that, okay? That's not the way to go. That's not taking every Mapleton citizenry into account for what they want, okay, or what make the majority of Mapleton, okay? The trails are great, okay? I own property in Mapleton and in Maple in several locations, okay? Not everybody has the same usage of Mapleton's recreation. And quite frankly, I don't think a splash pad, great. Put that in a budget recommendation for it for the following year so we know where that money's gonna go. And then you'll probably get a lot more support rather than saying, we're just gonna put a big tax, a big slush fund, and we'll decide where it goes later without your knowledge, okay? Or with your knowledge, but without your consent. So you wanna do something like this, great. Okay, but do it so we all have the transparency of knowing what's going on. Slush funds are not transparent. In fact, they can lead to all sorts of things, corruption and things like that. Transparent budgeting is the way to go so we can all see what's going on and call out our concerns. This process right here is not that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Rick Silva. Hi, Corey. Council members. I came all the way down here. I may as well say a couple things. So this is just a perspective on this from the tax perspective. So before we get to tax, I kind of want to back up a little bit and talk about like the purpose and what we're trying to accomplish. And it's just from the point of view of all my sons have, like, we beat a well-worn path down to the CRC because they do water polo and they swim all the time, and we're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. There's a lot of great facilities. We did that with things down in Spanish Fork. We do that within the area. I think one of the great things about where we're at is that there is the ability to do lots of things. The kids can do it, everybody can do it. But it doesn't seem like it has to be within our city limits to get all the great stuff. And those that choose to do that can sign up, register, pay the price, go down. Prices are kind of bigger when you're non-resident in Springville for some of these things. But we're not, I think we know this, like we're not gonna replicate a competition pool in Mapleton. Like, that's not our goal. Because we have that and it's nearby and we can do that. And if we choose to do that, we'll pay non-resident prices down at you know, at the library in Provo, Orem, or other places like that. So I agree with a couple of things that have been said, that if we choose to be that involved in the activities and we want to kind of replicate it here, one, it's not going to be at the same level. We don't have those kind of facilities. Even a library, we're gonna have a great library, places to sit, beautiful sunshine coming in, but we're not gonna have all the books there, right? None of the libraries have all the books there. So you're gonna get kind of partway there, but not really all the way there. And what you end up doing is you pull the tax in on everybody. Yes, it's low. Yeah, you've done a lot of due diligence reaching out. But if we choose to, we can be involved in these things. If we don't choose to, and we end up going this direction, we kind of have to be involved in kind of paying for it. The other thing I want to note is, I'm going to kind of a side note on this, looking at the survey I think that a lot of people went in, took the survey and said, yeah, let's not do any of these things. And they're listed, that's kind of at the bottom, and it's its own line there. When you do a survey and you give everybody 2 choices or 3 choices from a list of awesome things, and you say, I don't want any of it, the person taking that is casting like 1 choice. And so where library is like, this is one of the possible choices, when you're casting a vote for none, it's 1 out of the number of people that are there. It's apples and oranges. Bottom line, we're undercounting none. And I think there's a lot of people that look at this and say, you know, of all the great things that can be done, none, if you looked at the data a little bit the right way, it is apples and oranges, but you can account for it. You can adjust the way that you look at your percentages, and none would be fairly high. Please, I hope we don't overlook the fact that there's a lot of people that take the survey that feel like I can be in, but it doesn't have to be in Mapleton to be in. Most of us come here because it's wonderful here, because it's not over-commercialized, right? We know who we are. We state that to everyone. We don't have to state it. They come anyway. Let's keep that. Let's be near the awesome stuff, and then let people choose. Thanks. It's good to see you again.
Thanks,
Rick.
All right, if that's all of the public comments, we will close the public hearing portion. And then, Bryce, we just have a couple questions for you, if you wouldn't mind answering these. Maybe we need Logan's help too. Bike paths, will you speak to the sidewalks and bike paths comment, please?
So,
Clint?
That's a great question. The RAP tax is, let me restate that. The bike paths in the road would more fall under a road fund.
Such as sidewalks.
Such as Class C sidewalk funding. The RAP tax, it really is restricted in how we can spend it, so much so that we would likely be unable to spend it on a road bike path, because that's not technically a parks, recreation, or arts program. As great as those are and as important as those are, they just wouldn't be funded by the RAP tax. They would be funded by other sources. In fact, those are currently under project being funded by other sources that the city receives from the state, such as Class C road funds.
Can I clarify something with that? I know at one point there was a map of bike trails within the city, and so.
That was.
I know bike paths are sometimes labeled as trails, but I don't know if that makes a difference at all.
So so to distinguish a bike path, such as maybe a proposed bike path up on the mountain as a parks destination, a parks funded program, that would potentially qualify for RAP tax funding, because that falls into the parks category. And the walking trail, there's some amenities that we could put on the walking trail that would qualify for that funding. But again, when you get to the roads or sidewalks, those would fall into another category, so they would not qualify. The funds are so restricted that when we do something such as walking trail improvements, park playgrounds or park improvements or library programs, that when we do something with that, we actually have to put signage up to show that this project was funded by RAP tax. So if you drive around cities that currently have that, you'll see in some of their parks that signage. So It is restricted funds, and we will classify them as restricted funds on our financial statements, and we are required to use them as restricted funds for those qualifying projects.
And those restricted funds on our budget year, is this something that we'll plan on at time of budget on June 1st? Or our amendment to the budget at the end of the fiscal year? Is that something we do then, or do we do it as need basis and we do a public notice and then hold a council for decision?
So a little bit of both, I believe. It's going to be, we definitely will budget for some projects, but we can't budget for something we don't know, such as maybe an arts group within the community. Maybe a chorale group might come in and ask for funds. We can kind of budget an amount that we could use for requested funds, but until those are actually requested, we're not going to know how much they're asking for. We can definitely on July 1st budget an amount that says we're going to not donate, but we're going to give X dollars to requested arts programs, and then that gives the committee the ability to come in and ask for those funds, and then we can approve up to that amount that's approved in the budget. So there's going to be a little bit of both of, yes, we're going to budget those things that we already know, but then we will have the flexibility throughout the year if a group comes to us and asks for funding and there's support for that, then we can definitely amend the budget to include their request.
Is it required to do a public notice then? Do we know that?
I don't believe it is, because at that point we are spending, we'll have a public notice for the budget amendments, but not to spend the RAP tax money. As long as we're spending the RAP tax funds the way they're supposed to be spent.
Does the committee come before the council at a council meeting to request the funds?
Yeah.
Yes.
And is it a
And
public hearing item? Or is that to be determined? Could be, could not be?
Yeah, we'll check on that.
Okay.
Hey, Bryce, I know you're in the midst of an audit every year. We go through an audit, and I would imagine that RAP tax money will be scrutinized through part of that audit to identify or to confirm and validate that it's being spent appropriately. I know there's a lot of concern that this is an unregulated slush fund, and so I asked that question to add additional clarity to what that accountability piece is on the spending and the process.
These funds would be regulated more than other funds that the city receives, and as part of the audit, the auditor will just verify that they're being kept in a restricted account versus an unrestricted. So yeah, they will be classified as restricted. If there are funds that are, that's if funds are not spent throughout the year, they'll then be categorized as restricted for the following years. So that way, if they're not spent in entirety, we'll know what's remaining.
It carries over.
Yeah.
One other thing too is we do report all of these back to the state. So not only do we have our own auditor that would help make sure that any funding is misused, but we also have to report that back to the state, because a lot of what the RAP tax funding is legislative from the state as much as it is local. And so we have to then report back to them and keep good track records of what it's being used for.
With this being a new, if it passed and it was a new thing, I would be supportive of public hearings being involved, especially, with us all trying to figure out how the REP tax works and how the committee works. And so I think public hearings, it's better to to be overly public about how it's spent.
There's a few more comments here. Seems like it's covering for commercial revenue. That's silly. Of course it's not. We'll get the commercial revenue as the commercial businesses come, and we're going to get what comes. And the study of the recent general plan that we went through, we hired professionals to help determine how much commercial will be needed with the built-out population, and the amount of land that's zoned or currently shown to be zoned on the general plan for commercial is supposedly sufficient for a city of our size. Somebody said lean on MAG for funding. Absolutely, we do. MAG's more regional, and we tend to vote similar with Springville and Spanish Fork when there is MAG funding available, such as the trail connection that's going to go across the railroad tracks. That's all MAG funding. We fight for that all the time. Nobody said anything about grants, but we got recently $3 million in grants. In case you're wondering, that's money we don't pay back to help fund the water project we're just finishing right now. It will save about 35–40% of our pumping, electricity for pumping out of our wells, and reduce the amount of water we're pulling from the wells. And by the way, if you think there's something more important than that here, I'd love to meet with you tomorrow at my office so you can explain that to me. That water is like gold. It's very valuable.
Can I also comment on that? So it's a regular topic of conversation, seeking grants. I know all of us and all of staff know that this is a priority, and so grants is definitely high priority for all of us.
The committee with the citizenry is a great plus. Heard lots of things about a slush fund. With the committee involved and going through the city council, I don't see it as a slush fund. I see it as another budget line item. I've been doing the budget here for 7 years, and in 7 years of budgeting, I think I've had 2 comments. 2. And guess what the budget's done since I've been here? Doubled, over doubled 2.5 times. I've had 2 comments in 6 years about a budget. We're talking about 120. If we collect what the Utah State Tax Commission calculated for 2023, what we would have collected had we had the RAP tax in 2023 is $125,000. I didn't run that on a calculator. It's what the Utah State Sales Tax Commission said. Now, I would invite anyone to come meet with me and look over the needs, not the wants, but the needs of what we need in this city to maintain the level of service that you all spoke about tonight. All the reasons you love Mapleton, the reasons you want to live here, for safety, for police, for fire, for all the amenities. When you flush the toilet, it works right. When you turn on the faucet, it works right. All of those things. I would invite you to come meet with me anytime. You're welcome to set it up through Corey. Everyone in this city, I've made public. If you want to meet with me and if you have ideas, something we haven't thought of, please, by all means, bring them. We sit and scratch our heads and sometimes beat our head against the wall trying to figure out how to accomplish the things we need to accomplish with about 1/8 of the money that we have. So if this little bit of RAP tax goes and we can improve some trails for some of the kids to ride their bikes to school, if we can improve other things. Hey, when I came to this city, there was money leaking out to different arts people because they were asking for it. I had to put a stop to that stuff in order for us to get where we've 2.5 times the budget. We spent more money in asphalt roads in this city, combined in the history of the city over the last 6 years. We are absolutely taking those funds and putting them to our needs. I don't see anything floating around here that somebody wants. I don't. Sorry. I don't see that. Now, the survey is going through a survey to determine there's more infrastructure. We did a facilities master plan. We hired professionals to do a facilities master plan. This city, in order to maintain the levels of service, we're going to need some more facilities. We're going to need some for Parks and Rec. We're going to need some for the fire. We're going to need some for the administration. We're going to need some for our elderly, for our seniors. We're going to need these facilities. The question is what type of facilities do we build that the city wants? What are things that we can do if we can afford it, and if we can do it, what are some of those things? That's the reason for that. So someone mentioned it, for a small amount and a very, very small impact, we may be able to do some very positive things for the generations to come. Now, I agree, no matter what amount of money and no matter where the money comes from, it requires responsible spending. There's no question about it. And I'll be the first to tell you that I study those budgets. I put a lot of effort in with the budget committee to make sure that the budget is not only balancing, but that we do have some excess for rainy day when things come. And if you look at the last 6 years, you will find that. You do not know what's coming. When COVID happened, we didn't know what was going to happen, right? So luckily we have a little bit of money there. We can glide through some of those things and make our way through some disaster or other things that we can't anticipate. So I would appreciate if anyone has anything to say that may be helpful, that you believe may be helpful. Please come meet with me. I'm available. And I can see two people in the room that have done that. I appreciate it. It's welcome. It's a very productive conversation, so I would welcome that. All right, that goes through all my comments on the RAP tax. Are there any others?
I have one follow-up question, and I do appreciate your comments and remarks, Mayor. I have a question that more to clarify, for clarification's sake. If the vote is that we want to put this on the ballot between now and Election Day, I suspect Logan has a laundry list of Parks and Rec, Arts and Parks things that this money can go to. There have been a few references to, we want to know what these things will go for, right? Pick a project and put it on the ballot. Well, we're not going to put every individual project on the ballot. My question is, and we're restricted in some way as council members or as a city and maybe this is just a transparent question that you can add to us. How much, can Logan share that list with us in all transparency? How much can we share of those things here's all the things we can do. Here's the 700 things it can go for. But we don't necessarily earmark right now, here are our top 3 priorities. Is that correct? I mean, I'm asking not only for myself, but also I would imagine there's some clarification that might be helpful to people participating tonight. Because there are valid questions. People want to know, is this money going to go towards X, Y, or Z? How much of that can we I don't think that's been defined yet, but there's an A through Z that it could go for. The may word, right? It may go towards these things. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So I, as Parks and Rec Director, can make recommendations on projects. I can bring forth and say, hey, the playground's 25 years old and it needs to be replaced. Hey, we've had a recent uptick in outdoor recreation and more opportunities for people to do that. Okay, maybe there's a mountain biking program. Maybe there's things that we could then offer to help fill that gap. But we have to be, as city staff, I can't go into our RAP tax committee and say, this is what we're doing. So everything I do is recommendation. It's then supported. Other ideas may come. Bryce had mentioned nonprofits within the city can apply for a grant, which this RAP tax funding could then pay for. So if there was singing groups, dancing groups, other things that are related to recreation, arts, and parks, they could apply, and this funding could then help not benefit Mapleton City, benefit Mapleton community members, businesses, whatever it may be. So to answer your question, is there a list? I absolutely have a list.
Mm-hmm.
I have a whole page worth of lists. And I can keep going, and they're definitely not wants, they're needs, and they're little things maybe people don't even think about, I'm sure people saw the vandalism
Well,
that
to
we've
give you an
received.
idea, the playground that we quoted, or that we got a quote for at the park was $350,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that takes 3 or 4 years to save up a RAP tax. That's the way you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
So the other playground, Mapleton Heights, $100,000. I mean, we like all this stuff, but we forget, how much it costs. So.
Yeah. So
So
does that answer your
you were
question?
just starting to share just the scope of things that could go towards, that do impact the experience of our residents in our Parks and Rec programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's anything from a drinking fountain in our parks that could be installed, to a new program, to outdoor stage that is used for Pioneer Days, and now we don't pay for that every year in our budget. It's paid for from a RAP tax, and therefore a Pioneer Day budget decreases. So there's other ways to help.
Or replacing some of the things that get vandalized at the many parks that we're experiencing right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So does
So
that answer
those
your
things
question?
can be discussed, those can be shared openly as people have
Absolutely.
questions. But if they're not feeling like we're giving them an A, B, and C priority, that's not how it works. It does come from the committee, right? So.
Yep, and I liken that a lot to our master planning, right? If we don't have those projects, those needs on the horizon and in our sights, then we're gonna miss that opportunity to make sure that we upgrade a bathroom or add a trail connection or whatever it may be, just like any other master plan we have. So it's super important that we have those things. And then, internally, we then do weigh out, is this a need or a want? And then from there, be able to, work with the committee to help decide the best way that those funds are used.
Thank you.
I really agree with this, and I want to speak to that. I think it's important for the public to know that we as city leaders and city staff have been in the trenches working on these needs and different programs throughout all around the city, and we kind of know the needs that we want, and we've talked about different things and how far we're stretching the budget. But I do think it's important that we give the public the understanding of what these things are that we would spend the money on it. And if that means providing them a list prior to getting it on the ballot, or I really like the idea, one of the gentlemen said, show some pictures of some things that we're thinking about using the money for. I think that's a brilliant idea.
But keeping in mind that the recommendations to the council come from the committee,
Right.
but, right? It's
He's
not.
just saying, here's what it could
That's what
be.
it could be.
And that's what you have to do with the public. You can't, that's why, like, it's unlikely that, I think, that a splash pad or something like that's built from this. Could be if the people want it and they come for it. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible, right? So you got to put all that stuff on there.
So the proposition was required to list those items. So in the ballot itself, we had to list those items. So they're not specific proposals, but they are,
Possibilities.
yes, possibilities of some things that residents have requested in the past, and how that RAP
Things
tax
that would be eligible to receive that money. Yeah.
My only comment on this is simply a reflection on the process. This isn't a city council prescribing a tax. This is us making a decision to follow a legislative process dictated by the state of Utah to allow our citizens an opportunity to choose if they want to pay the tax. Our choice is to say, do we want to allow our citizens to vote yes or no?
Yeah.
The reality is, if citizens, the majority of citizens say, yes, we do want this, then we'll do it. And if the majority say no, then that's okay too, then we won't do it. But to me, this is a beautiful opportunity to see the democratic process at work, and it isn't, public outcry has made this a little more intense perhaps than I perceive it. I perceive it as if you would like this, citizens, and the majority do, then we'll use it for good purposes that will support our community and those community connections and things, and people perceive, as we've heard tonight, the value differently. But what this is from a city council view is a participation in the democratic process, and we encourage everyone to vote your hearts on November 5th. And if our citizens want it, they get it, and we'll use it well. If they don't, we won't, and that's okay. So I want to draw back to what this actually is. This is a process to allow our citizens to individually engage in a democratic process. And what a beautiful opportunity we have as citizens to do that, and I welcome everyone to participate in the vote.
Yeah, great, that's great. Dave, you had a question, I think it's Dave, right? You asked that question, I'll put it over the microphone.
Yeah, one of the questions that I asked, and I wasn't sure if you were addressing the questions that we asked earlier. In the information packet, it said that it could be used for capital improvements for publicly owned or operated amenities, but not limited to parks, playing fields. My question was, are those things already part of the budget? And an extension of that question would be, if so, and the RAP tax, if the RAP tax, because I agree with you on your democratic process, is if it passes and you use that money, some of that money for those capital improvements, where does the money that's been budgeted go?
So what Dave's question is if it can be used towards some of the fields and different things, which it says in the pamphlet it can, and we've budgeted for that, then where does the money go? If we use the RAP tax money for that, what do we do with the money it was budgeted for? Is that right, Dave? So Logan, the way that the budget works, good question, Dave. So the way that the budget works, for example, with Parks and Rec is Logan gets a certain amount of money inside that Parks and Rec budget to do all of the items he has to do, which one of those would be maintain ball fields and in this item specifically. And he has to determine how much labor he can get and gather up, and as good as he is at mowing the lawn and fixing the baseball fields, costs X amount. If he feels like he's short, and he's got to have more manpower, then he's got to come back to the budget and raise the budget, right? So what this allows him to do, if you saw his laundry list of items that he keeps begging us for, of things that he needs to maintain the level of service he has in Parks and Rec, I think the last list I saw was, combined with our roads and that, is $55 million that we need eventually to get through what we need to provide the same level of service over time. And so what this is going to allow us to do is just extend the money further, or use this money for things we haven't been able to get to that may be broke, or things that he's had to put off because, and try to maintain the level of service while having things that don't operate and don't work. And I hope that that answers your question. So it'll be more specific based on the committee. They got to come ask for it, and they got to identify what the problem is and how we're going to solve it, which allows him to go further with the funds that he has. It's the same with roads. If we had if someone was so generous to walk in here with $4.5 million, we might catch up to get to the service level we should have, to then maintain with the road fee that we have and the budget to barely maintain over the next 20 years. But right now, we're limping along and we're spreading out tar, which sometimes is embarrassing, so we're trying to keep some of the gravel together until we can raise enough money to get there. So it's the same idea. And so if we get an influx of money, great, we can make great strides. If not, we continue to make small strides where we can, so.
I think along with that too, you know, the gentleman that was asking about bike lanes, you know, if a RAP tax funding paid for, let's say, trail construction, and that was then taken out of the budget, that money then goes back into the general fund, which then could be allocated to a bike lane, or it could be allocated to.
Yeah, I should have made that clear too for Dave, so.
Yeah, that's a good example.
So,
Love
I
it.
mean, I think Bryce could probably answer it better, but really it then becomes, the money is there, it could be saved for a rainy day fund at another point, or if there was another need, public safety needed something else, public works, whatever it was, it can go back in, and then council, administrate, you know, budget review would then be able to reallocate where, as a city, we feel like that money needs to go.
Good example.
Thanks, Dave.
There was a comment earlier about being on Facebook more. I don't know, Ryan. But I was also going to just ask about if there's a parks fee instead of a RAP tax, what's that process? And I know that's a little out there, but in the general plan, 60% of the people, of the residents, were willing to pay a parks fee. So just, you know, would love to understand how that process differs from this process.
So the parks fee, well, there aren't very many parks fees. We do have recreation fees to participate in recreation programs.
Mm-hmm.
Those fees would consist of the specific rec program that you're signing your child up or yourself up for. That is specifically to that program, and it's a way to really pay for that, a bit of that program. It'll buy you a jersey. Mapleton Rec program, I think, goes above and beyond what they do in those programs. So their jerseys are provided with that fee. That fee also pays for, not directly, but it helps pay for the referees, all of that stuff in the actual rec programs.
And sorry, I wasn't very clear. I know, you know, with the monthly bill that we have, there's a road fee.
Okay. I see what
And
you're
so
asking.
if I don't know if other cities have added a park fee or.
You have to do some research on
Not
that.
that
Are
I-
you aware of any?
It's
that I
a
know
little
of.
tricky because you're
No, the answer is no.
Okay, and
Answer's
I'm
no.
not proposing we do it. So in the.
You do have your park impact fee that's
It's paid
charged
every
at the
time
time of
there's a building
development.
The reason I bring this up, so why it's a no-brainer for me at least to vote to allow the RAP tax to be on the ballot. During the general plan process, 60% of residents were willing to pay a monthly fee of $10 to help fund parks, open space, recreation, trails, et cetera. Obviously, a typical family in Mapleton would pay $120 a year for that fee if that's the route that we went, that people were willing to pay. This would be a lot less, and based on my numbers, is around $31 annually per family instead of the $120. And so with it being less of a financial burden, and it's on the ballot, and it's a bit more regulation, and there's better systems in place to regulate how the wrap tax fees are paid, then for me, it's absolutely yes, vote to approve a wrap tax.
If everyone paid $120, that's over $400,000 a year, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, and well, I'm just, people were willing
Sure.
to pay that at the time, and so this is, again.
Any other questions for Bryce?
Just, you're gonna say that, I think this is a great opportunity for us to discuss this as a community. It's kind of a community effort. The community decides whether to do it or not. To me, it seems like a good opportunity for us to have some extra money. One thing that really hasn't been mentioned is in the city, we have, in the last few years, we've had an opportunity to basically free to the city some parcels in the community for future city parks that we need to also look for money as well. So this is something that we need to look for to make sure that we have these facilities nice for the city as well. And it pushes more for our open space, so I support this as well. Especially letting the city decide, and not less of the city council, but the city decides if they would like to go ahead with it.
Is that a motion?
There will be no
Oh, we
motion
don't have to have a
tonight.
motion
Yeah,
tonight. That's
this
right.
is just the
Just
public
taking
hearing,
public
public
comment.
comment,
That's
and answer
right.
any questions council
Any other
has.
questions?
I'll just say one statement. I think it's important that the citizens have confidence in their leaders. And I think if anyone has any doubt or any question about how we have, as city leaders, run the budget, I would encourage anybody to come in, sit down with Bryce. Bryce would be willing to do it. Look at our track record of how we've budgeted and how we've handled the funds that we've that have been put into our hands to spend the way we think the city needs to be run. I would just say, look at our track record. If you're questioning whether we would spend this money correctly or not, and if you're doubting our ability to really put the feelers out in the city and represent the people who have elected us to spend these funds wisely, and to look at what we've, like Mayor said, what we've been able to do and what we're continuing to do at levels of service far beyond what amount of money that we get in revenue in the city. So I just want to put that plug in for, take a look at our track record.
Okay, is that it? All right.
If everybody paid 120 and if the population is 14,000, it's 1.6 million.
Well, the 14,000
Per household.
Households,
per
though.
children, yeah.
Yeah.
The 14,
I wish that was right. That would get us a long ways in roads.
My kid doesn't make that.
So you said there's not a motion tonight? There needs to be
No
one.
motion tonight. Tonight was solely a public hearing.
That's public hearing.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Bryce. Thanks for your work on this. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move to item number 3 is consideration of an ordinance to rezone, we're going to look for a continuation on this. Rezone 3.1 acres located at 7000 South Main Street with a transferable development right, receiving site overlay in the A2 TDR zone, and this needs to be continued, so we see a motion to continue.
Sean, do you have a date on that one?
No,
or-
they may not bring it back, so just continue it at this point. We'll renotice it if it comes back.
I make a motion to continue item number 3 on our agenda.
second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilman Garrett.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Great. Item number 4 is consideration of amendment to Mapleton City Code Section 18.82.090 regarding the minimum project size requirement for a planned residential community PRC zone. Mr. Conroy.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You recall recently, as we were reviewing the application for a PRC zone for the Maple Hills development, there were some neighbors that expressed some concern about the potential project size for projects that could qualify for the PRC zone. And there was some discussion with the council, at least that sounded somewhat supportive of addressing that. And so all this item is a proposal to eliminate the exception that allowed projects between 10 and 15 acres and just keep the minimum size at 15 acres, for the ability to propose a PRC zone. These are our existing PRC zones. All of them are over 15 acres. Staff did not see any real concern of why we would need to still allow for that exception, and so we would be supportive of making that amendment.
I checked with some of the neighbors, and they loved the language, so I'll make a motion to.
hold on.
Public hearing.
It's public hearing. This being a public hearing item, we'll open it for public comment. If you have some, come forward. Seeing there are none, we'll close the public hearing portion and look for a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve an amendment to the Mapleton City Code, Section 18.82.090, regarding the minimum project size requirement for a planned residential community PRC zone.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Beck and a second by Councilmember Egbert.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
All right. The next item is a presentation item. Rob's going to take like 3 minutes to present. Just kidding. The presentation of the draft stormwater master plan. When we had these potential floods, my years are mixed up. Somebody help me.
2 years ago?
Last spring before last. This was an item that came up. That's something we need to go and study to make sure that our stormwater is right. And we tasked Rob with doing that. So Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll just make a quick introduction and then I'm hoping that my mic is up. And then turn the time over to Kason with Hanson Allen Luce. So very quickly as a background, I know we've talked about this before. Oh, so the mic is not on. Sorry. The button is on the back and I can't tell if the light's on or not. There we go. With some background, there was really quickly, there was a master plan that was put together about 15 years ago for Mapleton City that, as we've talked about before, we're landlocked. That includes having no direct access to a major water body. Mapleton didn't have an outflow, a connected storm drain system with an outflow into any direction. And so there was a master plan put together about 15 years ago that would have required tens of millions of dollars outside of Mapleton before we even got to a connected storm drain system within Mapleton. And so it was decided that we would go to 100-year retention on site, which has worked well. In many cases, as we're building out some of the existing areas of town that were not designed at that point to have a specified 100-year retention, as fields get built in, we're having to figure out what we do with the existing areas. And then, just as happens with retention ponds, as you know, we hired somebody about 1.5 years ago to do additional. So we have another person to help with the. Keep up and maintain those retention facilities. But depending on the storm and how fast it comes through, and sometimes those don't work as well as they do in other storms. And so what we've tasked Hanson Allen at looking at doing is looking at the areas where we need some additional infrastructure, and then just looking at an emergency overflow path. We'll continue moving forward with a 100-year retention design for all new development, but kind of looking and saying, okay, just to provide a good level of protection, what do we as a city need? And so with that, I'll turn it over to Kason. Madison, do you want to switch that? Here's the.
Yeah, I'm Kason Schurz with Hanson Allen Luce. I've got my colleague Cameron Bird, who has done a lot of the heavy lifting with the master plan effort. And what Rob has described is kind of a methodology that's been used by the city. Retention basically means that you create a volume of water under the ground or above the ground to capture that runoff. As you put roads, as you put roofs, you get more runoff when it rains. And so what you can see there on the screen is what we call drainage basins. Basically, in each of those polygons, if you drop a drop of water in one of those, it's all going to go to the same point, and so it kind of collects. And so we use these in our modeling efforts to quantify volumes, peak flow rates, all those kinds of things that are needed in a storm drain system. And so I'll kind of let Cameron explain our process of going through and estimating some of the things that are needed for the city, and then we'll get into the capital improvement plan and relative costs.
Yeah, thank you, Kason. So we'll jump to the next slide. Kind of cuts off up there and here, but on this left-hand side, we looked at what a DEM is. So USGS provides LiDAR information of elevations in the city, and doing an analysis on it, we've found that the city has a hydrologic sink in it. Eventually it's a bathtub that storm water will fill up and then it'll drain out. So within that light blue rectangles shape there, we have 854 acre feet worth of storage, which when Mapleton wasn't built out was used as natural retention, and it was a pretty effective system. But now that there is becoming more and more urbanization in those areas, it's prone to flooding. So we wanted to identify some solutions to that. On this right-hand side, it's cut off a little bit, apologize for that, is the current system. I know Seth and JD put a lot of effort into updating that, so that is quite updated there. And we show the 3 natural drainage locations of Hobble Creek, Dry Hollow, and then Spanish Fork in those locations. So Dry Hollow to the north, Dry Hollow to the west, Hobble Creek to the north, and then Spanish Fork to the south there. And then, so this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what we wanted to show tonight is the projects that we have identified. Oh, thank you, that's better. So this is one figure that we cut in half so we could zoom in a little bit further. So on the left-hand side there is the top portion of the city. And all the red dots are deficiency locations where we've found and help with the city personnel that we've identified flooding spots. So, and then those kind of mint polygons around it are the contributing areas. So if you drop a point of water, that's where all of those points of water would collect at that deficiency location. So we've came up with some projects, and we've prioritized them 1 through 3, though projects 1 through 9 are base projects, and then 10 through 18 are infiltration improvement projects that we would want to happen. So kind of on this right-hand side, we focus on conveyance. And right now, there's not a way for that flooded water to leave. So those would be essentially a drain out to that Dry Hollow. Right now, there is that black polygon on the left. There's about 86 acre feet of storage in Dry Hollow that we could utilize as a retention basin there as one of our potential projects. One caveat with that is there's a large portion of UDOT pipes that are along Maple Street and I guess 1600 West. So there'd be just some coordination there. And then there's some upsizing pipes and connecting there that would be required to make that all work. So yeah, those are kind of the projects we identified. Anything
I was just gonna say, just to boil it down, in some places the bathtub's not big enough. And when the bathtub's not big enough and water starts going, it's gonna go where it wants to go. And as development occurs, that could be someone's basement. So that's why there's the concern. Like Rob said, in some of these older areas, the standards were not in place when those were built. And so the conveyance just means a way for the water to get from point A to point B, a pipe, a ditch, something. And so when the bathtub's too small, if you have a little bit of conveyance to let that overflow go somewhere, that is the essence of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Jump into, and then we created a capital improvement plan with our proposed solutions, kind of what we talked about, and then we got into the number side of things of what these projects are going to cost based on future development, and then some funding mechanisms that you can see there. And then here's our summary of what we believe it's going to cost. There is only 9 projects shown there. On that previous figure, we had 18 projects, and the reason for that is these projects we feel are kind of not able to be funded by just monthly fees. They would possibly have to be acquired funding from some other mechanism, but those other 9 projects, they would be funded kind of at a piecemeal rate where we would put something in and see if it worked, and then if it needed additional resources or infrastructure, they would put some in there to make sure that the funds are being used responsibly there.
And so we're doing our best with these numbers, but there's lots of uncertainty that goes in. And you imagine trying to figure out how fast all the water is going to infiltrate into the ground, how much water of runoff we're getting. There's lots of uncertainty in these numbers. So it's not that we're not guessing entirely. We're making good educated guesses to get these quantities. But the approach would be, let's put some things in, let's see how they do. Your staff knows where the problems, a lot of these problems are, and so let's bolster that, see how it does, and then go at it from there. There are some of these projects that we believe could be impact fee eligible. We're still in discussions about that, about whether that's something the city wants to do, but that's another funding mechanism as well as the grants. And as the city grows, that fund, that monthly fee, that utility fee will grow as well.
So do we just add that 12 million to the 54 million you quoted earlier?
Are you still going, presentation?
No, I think we're done.
Oh, you're done,
Yeah,
okay.
if you have any
All right, great. What questions do you guys have for Kason and Cameron? Any? It's a big task. It's no small.
Were you able to break out anything that would be a part of impact fees and not really paid by existing citizens?
Yeah, we're still in the works of discussing that and seeing if that's something the city would like to explore. But yeah, we believe that there are several of these projects that would have some level of impact fee eligibility, yes.
Surely the hollow
Yeah,
infrastructure could qualify.
I think you guys identified out of those projects, well, and I just wanted to ask a question, how much was, because that was the 12 to get the kind of our overflow and do the stuff within the city, and we also looked at the Mapleton Canyon to be able to extend that if we were to build that all the way out, and I don't remember that number off the top of my head.
That number was like 12 million by itself.
Yeah, so it'd be 25 million altogether, so I guess so we're looking at, I think it was about half of these projects, about half of it might be impact fee eligible. We don't have the city, because we don't have a constructed stormwater facility other than what development has put. I mean, we do some, but there wasn't a defined thing of here's what we're going to build out for development and everything. Right now, it does not have an impact fee, and so we need to look and see, okay, based off of development, how is that going to spread out? How does that compare to what other cities are asking and stuff, and so we're looking at all that. I guess the thing that we're trying to get to at this point is this. All right, this is additional stuff that I would say I feel like is needed. I think we were chasing and we were getting really close to flooding people out. But it is $12 million, which is not a small fee, or not a small amount at all. We can figure out the funding. I guess the question is there support to do this, and then we can try to come back with the funding and then say, okay, here's how we're gonna figure out the funding. We just kind of wanted some initial direction before we finalize and finalize the plan. Said this is our plan, and come to you with proposed funding mechanisms.
Well, and I don't know if tonight that you could answer that. I'd say we probably need to spend some time, and maybe this is a retreat item as well, that we can go on and discuss this in more detail.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, and if, Corey and I stood at the homes of those houses that were about to flood, and it's not, I mean, today it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you stand there with the homeowners and they're seconds or minutes away from flooding, it's not pretty, and you sit there and wish you'd have spent the money to make sure that doesn't happen. So this is a serious thing we got to figure out if we're going to do something about it, or if we're going to, cross our fingers that we don't get another year like that, which kind of silly, but we're going to figure it out.
To put this in perspective, what we've been spending, and we've had to use some of our reserves the last couple of years to cover it all, is we've been spending about $100,000 a year in this, city projects, and we're talking 12.1 million. And that, and then another about 12 million if we wanted to build a large enough facility to take what's projected could be the 100-year flow out of the canyon and bring that all the way down to Halpa Creek. So, I mean, these are big numbers compared to what our.
I think, Rob, we sit down as a staff and kind of come up with a game plan based on this summary, then report to Dallas, to the mayor, and talk to him and say, okay, this is what we're looking at here, and then we can kind of discuss coming before the council with some work sessions.
For the Maple Canyon project, I don't know if there's a priority that would be attached to that one?
So we're trying to get a grant to help with the funding for that. And we have a separate memo that we've prepared that kind of describes the flow rates and the size and where we might take that and everything. And so it's kind of in a separate document. So it's not on this list purposely. But in my opinion, it should have some pretty high priority, because we've done some 2D modeling to show if that flow rate were to come through the city, the flooding extents, and it's pretty extensive.
I think grants are what we're gonna have to look strongly at, because you even talk about impact fees. For Sean's side, we're at a spot now where a lot of that south end has been developed and approved and going through the process, so we're not picking up impact fees from them. So you don't only get impact fees from any development moving forward, which you're not gonna see a lot of that. So we got a lot of discussions in front of us.
Yeah, we gotta keep gathering information and be able to have this discussion more thorough, so.
Yeah, and the reason I mean, it's the same as with the water and a PI master plan, and then we're gonna be starting on a transportation master plan. We've been really good about, I feel like, in being able to get grants lately. We got that $2 million water grant. We've got about almost $1 million coming from MAG. We got awarded, but it won't be here for 3 years to build the trail along US 89. We've got a grant to do the transportation master plan. We got a grant to do ADA ramps. So we're doing good, but a lot of especially the bigger dollar ones, the first question is, where does it show in your master plan that you need it? So that's why I've been pushing to get these through, because it's these type of plans that make it to where I can go to the different entities and get some serious money to get some of these done. So
sounds good.
Thanks, Rob.
Kason, Cameron, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rob. All right, we have 2 discussion items. One is discussion on memorialized trees, benches, and other commemorative features in public areas. Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, I just want to have a discussion. So time to time, we get individuals in the community that are reaching out that would like to either honor a relative or find a way to give back to community, plant a tree, donate a bench. And we don't have a process currently in place to say yay or nay. Now I'll go through a couple of these. We do have some that are currently in place. There's a handful of these in City Park that were, years and years ago, well before probably I was even born, that were put into place. And so this one says in memory of. These are just benches that were installed down at the pickleball courts that would be a potential thing that could have a plaque or something that, if a family wanted to put on. These are swing benches that are located along our trail, and then also a handful in our parks. As you recall, back when we opened our pickleball courts, we had a young adult that was tragically killed, and so we felt it was fitting to name a court. So it's kind of, that one is a little bit different, but I think also gives perspective. This one's just a statue down at Ira Allen, commemorative of another individual that had passed away. So really what I want to, this is another one in Town Square. This one's a little bit more centered around the historic preservation of Town Square, but there's other avenues that things could be memorialized in there. So I'll just leave it on here. These are just a couple examples of things. Really, I just wanted to get some feedback from you as a council if you even support a program like this. We don't need to get into the details of what that is, just simply wanted to have a discussion if this is something that you felt was worthwhile, and if it was, staff would then go back and prepare a more formalized policy to be able to go through how these things would come about. One of the things in our staff report that was mentioned is just being able to identify where, how many, the aesthetics. So just a couple things to maybe think of as you think through what it is. So,
Logan, you mentioned just now, this is a from time to time you get requests, but as I was reading the staff report, I had the impression that there was a lot of people asking. So maybe I misread that. I mean, are you talking like 1 a year, 10 a year?
I would say about 10 a year probably is what we get.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Maybe, Logan, share some insight since you've been here. Have you approved any of these?
No, the only one that was put in was one that had been planted, and the tree had then since died, and they wanted to replace it, and so we had said, yeah, you can take that one out and put another one in.
Because that was the thing I wanted to emphasize, since me and Logan's been a part of this, we haven't had any come through, but there has been in the past.
Yeah, other than the Bridgers Court, that's the only one in recent years.
I
And
think
ma-
that's what we'd want to look at policy as well as, what does that process go through to?
And just a quick comment. So I worked in a community that we did this, and it was fabulous, because what we had done is we'd mapped out everywhere we wanted public benches. Said, these are the locations where the city thinks they're valuable, and then people could come and say, okay, I would love to donate for this. They get their plaque attached to the bench. You know, we have this trails plan. There's locations that's gonna be up in the foothills that would be great for these. We think that there'll be a lot of interest in people wanting to do it.
I think it's a great idea. I'm totally supportive of doing something. I was just really surprised that there's that many. I didn't have any idea. Yeah.
So, Logan, I think one thing would be helpful for them is to put an inventory together of what's already out there. Some of these, we don't even know how they got put there.
That's part of it, yeah. I can definitely do a little bit more research on where and why they're
what's
there, but,
existing.
yeah.
Do you just really want a yay or a nay from us, or any additional discussion?
Just more of a feel on if this is something that you would support.
Just a question. I think we'd support it, but would the existing things count? So like, we've got some benches that nobody has a name on, well, you can donate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely could.
Where would that money go to, just to help Parks and Rec?
So they would donate to specifically put it, so if it was a bench, they
And
would,
if it was already there? We already have infrastructure there.
yeah, so are you asking if they did put it on like the bench, or?
An existing bench, they would, well,
Yeah, so they would just provide the plaque, we would then be able to put it on to the bench.
okay, so that, you answered my question.
I think with our commitment to our small town, Big Heart, and our heritage, history, I'm totally supportive. I love the idea of really making this systematic, and Sean's recommendation, I think I'd love to see something replicated like that.
Perhaps we could just send a couple of ideas or parameters.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be great if you want to put some thought and time.
Yeah.
So,
I really like the idea. Very supportive, and I like having some order to it.
great.
Good. Josh, do you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in you show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcomes. And so, we talk about wrap tax. You know, there's plants along trails, there's benches along trails, there's trees along trails. Maybe we could figure out, or you guys could figure out an incentives program that kills two birds with one stone, where they can donate along trails, and you can use part of that money, part of the donation money that goes along to maintain trails, maybe rename some trailheads or whatever, name donations, but plants, trees, benches.
Yep, it's excellent. Yes, sir. Good idea. Thanks, Josh. Yes. Okay, is that all the questions for Logan?
Yep. Thumbs up.
Great.
All right, thank
And we
you.
have done that in some occasions too, Josh. It's good idea. Okay, next, last item is discussion item number 7. Discussion on Little Miss Mapleton. Mr. Miner.
Yeah, thank you. So recently, we had a individual reach out who lives in town. She is part of the organization with the Little Miss Spanish Fork and Miss Spanish Fork, just in that world. Recently moved here to Mapleton, and she had sent an email and just inquiring if this is something that Mapleton would be interested in hosting and having, and obviously partnering in. So I sat down and met with her. Very sharp, awesome, lot of energy, and she's willing to put the effort forward to do what's necessary to have it. One of the things in our staff report, you could see the proposal on the Little Miss Mapleton, but just a little bit of context. We are combined with Springville for our Miss Springville Mapleton pageant, and so the funding that we put forth on that program is pretty minimal compared to what Springville puts forward. And so as I met with her, one of the notes that I had taken was, what does this do if we have our own little Miss Mapleton program, but we have a separate Miss Springville Mapleton program? A lot of times those things work kind of hand in hand and as a mentorship program for the younger individuals. And so that's what I wanted to bring forward tonight, is to see if there was any interest on exploring, if Miss Springville Mapleton, if there's any interest in having its own, you know, just a Miss Mapleton pageant, and then also with the Little Miss Mapleton. Obviously, they're requesting some budgetary money to help with that, but just wanted to get a discussion and a feel of what you as a group think.
Maybe we'll be asking this question a lot, but would it be RAP tax eligible?
Possibly, yeah.
Do they?
The topic itself, I'm probably more indifferent on. As I've thought about this, I come back to some of those conversations, Logan, that we've had over the past few years regarding some of the other events or programming that we've done in terms of budget, right? There was the one that we've talked about that the city was heavily subsidizing, and you've worked over the years to bring that more in line. So as I consider this, I think a couple of the questions I have, I'm not opposed to it, but I think what we might want to consider as it applies to all programming, not specifically this, all programming, what is that, how much are we willing to subsidize something, right? If it's the Midnight Run, that's not the name of it.
Moonlight Half.
Moonlight Half, or a Little Miss Pageant, you're right. What is that benchmark? How much are we willing to subsidize something versus making it pay for itself through revenues and, you know, those types of things. I think if we create some of those parameters, and regarding a pageant, and I don't know, someone, Madison, maybe you can answer, I don't know, like if 1 year we have 10 contestants that are paying their fee, and the next year we have 40 contestants paying their fee, those are variable costs, but the fixed costs stay the same, and then we're hit with, hey, we only had 10 people, we need more money, right? I mean, those are some of the things that I would be cautious about.
Yeah,
I would maybe add to, this might be impossible to research, but what did Spanish Fork and Springville, what did it look like when they had a population what we have now? And did they, at that time, kind of share those? Because what you want to avoid is what you're just hitting on, is all of a sudden you have a situation like, wow, we're not getting enough interest in this. And so what did that look like? First, what's the population need to be? How many schools, how many kids, that kind of stuff? That, do you have?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but we could definitely look that up. I do know from a budget standpoint, though, most local organizations, their top 3 expenses are the scholarship awards, a city float at all of the parades and what it takes to make that happen, and then putting on the actual event.
Yeah, and that's we currently budget in for the Miss Springville Mapleton, and 95% of it goes to the scholarship fund. And then a little bit of it goes to help the production of the pageant. So, and there are organizations that will help sponsor and support outside of just city funds.
I think that would be an important part of it.
For me, this one, I'm a little bit like Leslie. There's no hill I'll die on either side of it. I'm sort of equality inclined on these kinds of things, and if there's not a Little Mister, then I don't necessarily need a Little Miss. So I have some preferences there, and I know there is a Little Mister program, but considering our last several conversations where we're trying to bleed more money by rubbing 2 dimes together, it's hard for me if this doesn't solve a pain point or solve high demand that we've had requested from our citizens, for me to want to make an adjustment that affects our budget right now. So for me, the timing is likely not right. I'm not against the consideration. I'm not against it being a private thing as well. So I'm open to more information, but in terms of, am I interested in spending additional money on something that doesn't solve a problem or doesn't address a high demand need of a large percentage of our citizens, I'm not super supportive.
Even if you brought this for the council and they said yes to it, you would still give Springville what you're giving them out of the budget for the Miss, so it's
an
totally
addition.
Yeah. All right.
Is there any interest in pulling away from Springville?
This is in addition to what we'd be paying?
Yeah, I think that's part of the discussion, is if, you know, and obviously when this came about, that was just me going out on a limb that it doesn't make sense to have 2 different ones. So there hasn't been any formalized conversations.
Springville have a Little Miss?
I don't believe so. And,
Be more inclined to talk to them and say, let's add a combined
Yeah.
to that.
And that's
than-
definitely
than
a possibility,
break-off.
for sure.
So maybe there's some more data to be had there, but
Yeah.
I'd be more supportive of that at this point.
Yeah, and one note to so the Little Miss Spanish Fork, I guess there's a problem with a lot of Mapleton residents changing their zip code or finding a grandma's address.
Same with
or-
rec programs, yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of the reasons this individual came forward, is there's been some concern that there has been an influx of Mapleton
There's a
people.
lot of interest in Mapleton, you're saying?
Yeah, and now I don't know what that number is, but that was just her.
And we would likely replicate that problem from other people in other cities who wanted to participate.
Correct.
So I'm not confident that I buy that data as a set. So I'd be intrigued with more additional information on this, and if Springville is interested in a partnership too with kids or boys or whatever, but.
And more data on when it would be time to separate Mapleton and Springville.
Right.
And take the funding we're giving Springville and put it in our own city.
Right.
Okay. Makes sense.
I agree. I think it may be too early, a little bit bad timing, but I don't not support the idea, for sure.
Did you not do it on a night where there's $26 million worth of storm
Hey,
drain?
this
that's
is pretty
needed?
good, this is pretty cheap.
Extra spending.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
thanks, Logan. Thanks for being creative and looking at all those things. It's a big deal. Appreciate it. Let's start with administrative reports. Chief, we can start with you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to bring up a topic that we talked about in the spring, give you a little update on it and where we sit today. The plan in the spring dealing with the electrical bikes on the roadway was to do an educational push, stop the kids riding it and have their parents come and pick them up. And that did take place. I ran some numbers. We need to do a little bit better. Our report writing system doesn't give me full access, but so I'm in the ballpark here. But it looks to me like the officers issued just under 50 warnings, wrote about 12 tickets, and impounded a few bikes. I think that has helped with some people, but it hasn't with others. And we still see the problem. Here we sit today, and we still have to deal with this. So I'm going to tell you what happened today. This is just on Wednesday after 1 o'clock. And this may be a fluke, I don't know, but I've never stopped a 5-year-old driving a four-wheeler, but we did today. So with the parent sitting next to him. So that's a problem. Okay, so that got taken care of. 3 kids leaving the junior high on a Sur-on, an e-bike, going down our roads. The bike's designed for one, and the junior high is having a problem with kids riding them to school. So we're gonna go up there tomorrow, and the kids that come to school with them, we don't wanna keep them from class, but the school resource officer will identify who they are and then talk to their parents throughout the day. So that was the second stop. The third stop was one on a Sur-on speeding down by Ira Allen, and the fourth one was a dirt bike that came off Overlook Drive and went down into the dips and sped through. Crazy enough, the person that caught them was Brent Siemens. Some of you may remember him. So that's 4 incidents in this afternoon, so we have a problem. So what I've reinforced to the officers that they have your support to enforce that. It's interesting because an officer stopped one of them on Monday morning. It was a kid driving to the high school on the Sur-on, and his mom was quite upset that he wasn't able to drive to high school on the Sur-on because their dynamic doesn't work out that she can take him to school. So she was quite upset, but then a few hours later, somebody called and says, hey, I appreciate you getting this kid off the street. So we're split. I mean, it's split. It's not a unanimous feeling out there, but we're gonna stay on them. I don't love it, but it's gonna happen. I'm seeing enough that I'm nervous about these. So I've reinforced to the officers that they have your support based on what I've heard at past council meetings, and we'll stay on them. So it's still out there. It's hard too, because the kids today that we stopped, they're great kids. They're awesome. They're awesome kids, and I know because I was 17 once and 14 once, and I would want to ride one too, but I can't have them on the road. So I wanted to give you that update with them. So any questions on the e-bikes?
If they're on the sidewalk, they're fine, is that
No,
correct? They're not
no.
to be on them at all?
And another thing that's important, we call these e-bikes, but there's a big difference. If they don't have pedals, if it's just a fixed footrest, that's a motorcycle. Yeah. So they're not allowed on the road.
That's the differentiator.
Yeah. And the ones that have pedals and that they're assisted, there's some requirements there that they can, but they have a little bit more leeway. But the ones with the Sur-ons that go fast, that have the mounted footrest, they can't be on the road. They have registration requirements, insurance requirements, driver's license requirements
But e-bikes can be on the sidewalks?
in certain circumstances.
Certain circumstances,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to
Yeah.
have that clarification.
Yeah, and
But
so-
not on public parks,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
race, motocrossing across
So
Harvest
last
Park.
Friday night, sorry Logan about this, we didn't get this kid, but they're taking off on us too. We're not getting them all stopped. And they stopped one of Ira Allen, and he was gone. So they're watching Ira Allen. Honestly, that's the hot spot in town, is down in that area.
Oh, come drive by my park.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, Logan, for the broken sprinkler heads, but I can't be on call all the time.
Well, and, and I feel bad for the park stuff too, but I think they're connected. I would imagine that the ones we're dealing with are pretty much connected. So anyway, just the basis of this is, the point is, I'm getting mixed reviews from parents. You will probably hear about it. I'm sure it'll get some kick on social media too, but I just don't, when the crash happens, which I'm afraid we're going to have a crash, I want to be able to say we did what we could, so.
Keep it up. I support the
Okay.
effort.
Okay, anything else?
What about the little scooters?
Yeah, so the electric.
3 kids on one.
Yeah.
Little ones.
Yeah, they stopped one, it's been about a week ago, that blew through the stop sign at Maple and Main. So same thing. Yeah, they can't be out on the road. Those ones can be on a sidewalk, but they can't be out in the.
The electric scooters.
Yeah. Yeah, and like today, I shouldn't say all 4 incidents. I think maybe one of them had a helmet on, but we're not seeing helmets either, so. So anyway, we gotta do something.
Just to clarify, if an adult is riding it and they have a helmet on and they're obeying traffic laws and they have a license, are they allowed on public streets?
If they're
Or are
street
they-
legal, if they've got the blinkers,
Gotta be
the
the blinkers,
registration and all that on there,
Okay.
which you have to buy a kit for that. Oh, thank you for bringing that. That reminded me of something. One of the complaints I'm hearing from the parents, which is a legit complaint, is that when they're buying these, the salesmen are telling them, hey, they're street legal, you're good to go. And I feel bad for people for that. They're being misled on that. That's not the case. I have a copy of the laws. I can email it to you guys if you want it. But
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd be happy to reinforce that. I appreciate what you're doing. It makes a difference, and I know the feedback's mixed, which is too bad, because it's all about our kids' safety and our community's safety, but keep at it.
Crazy enough,
Educate them.
the 5-year-old was a good driver. She was doing a good job. Crazy enough.
Better than some.
Thanks, Chief. All right, Logan.
I'll be quick. You've heard enough from me tonight. Just one more reminder, Scarecrow Spectacular, October 12th. 3 to 5 is the Scarecrow portion. We've also added a cornhole tournament. That'll be fun. We have a giant chair that my staff built that is awesome, so it'll be fun to come take pictures in. You can't get out once you get in it, but it's really fun for the pictures. And then from 5 to 7 will be the line dancing in the park, and then also the community pumpkin patch down at the cemetery, where families can come and get one free pumpkin. So invite you all to come do that. We are about 85% done with the install of the new playground down at North Park. It is a definite upgrade from what we had before. We're super excited for it. The turf should be installed at the end of this week, and we're hoping to have it open by the end of this weekend. So I'll send some pictures and stuff out to the group after it's done, but it's gonna be awesome. We're really excited about it. And then lastly, just Hallie is now back in the office with us after having her baby, so we're excited to have her back. And we just wrapped up all of our fall sports swing, and it was really great, had really good feedback, a lot of participants, and we'll move right along to the next one. So thanks for the support. And
Thanks, Logan. Good job. I have to say, I've been at Ira Allen a lot lately in the evenings, and for kids' things down there, and I'm just telling you, that grass has not looked this good since I've lived here 18 years, and I'm dead serious. I don't want to admit that it's almost like my yard, Logan, but it's almost, I'm just kidding. My lawn's not even that good. Like, you guys, tell all the guys thank you. This is something that was a big thing for me when I came in, and I just thought our parks were embarrassing to some extent, and this is something we really wanted to fix, and you've done a great job taking by the horns. Thank you. It's awesome. All of it. The sidewalks, the parks, at the parks, they're inviting, they're clean, so keep up the good work. Thank you.
Just a comment. It seems like since Provo opened all their pickleball courts, that there's more availability evenings here. I don't know if you feel the same way, but.
Provo hasn't opened theirs yet?
I thought they did. I thought it was September 21st.
No, they opened all their soccer.
Yeah, that was the epic soccer.
Okay.
part, yeah.
Just the soccer side.
When,
Not personally, it seems like I still get quite a few, but.
yeah.
I thought there was some change, but.
Yeah. Okay, Bryce, thanks. Sean, nothing? Rob?
Give you a status report on two projects. The PI pipeline project's going well. They're just about to cross 2600 South. That's the last of the paving that would need to be done. Everything else is just off the shoulder and can get connected after, so we're good on schedule there. UDOT's drop dead paving date is October 15th, middle of October, so we're doing good there. We're just about finished up. The spring restoration project is also going well. There has been, you will notice that there is no pavement up there. Just surprised of how the Forest Service, how they wanted to regulate things here at the end. Just, some misunderstandings, I guess, on our part, but there was an extra, I think I told y'all about, there was an extra spring that we didn't know about, but by the time we got that chased down and got that connected in, it put us a little bit behind on where we wanted to be on the restoration, and they wanted us to make sure that we got all the restoration done before we pave. So we were supposed to be out of there on Thursday, including having everything paved. They didn't want us to pave. They wouldn't let us pave until we get a letter from them, until we had everything else done. We're hoping, there's been some communications. We're very close to being what we feel like is satisfying, finally, the Forest Service on everything that we've done except for seeding, making sure we got all the grading and all the rocks and everything located the way that we want them to. And then we're looking to get approval to do paving either next week or the week after. We've still got weather, so if we can get the approval from them to close it for 3 more days so we can get the paving done, then we'll get the paving done and we'll have that project finished up. So still working through that.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, Reed?
Things are going well at the new transfer stations, so the budget still seems to be in line with the proposed budget and our actual expenses so far, so that was a good guess. Still having trouble with the neighbors and the water district, et cetera, on being able to open up the new road, which is on 6th West, where the pump station is. We hopefully we get that open before the end of the year, but it's just still difficult. And it's all the neighbors down there. It's mostly the water district and the neighbor. He's kind of anyway causing some issues. But anyway, hopefully we can get that opened up before the end of the year, so we can get all the access there that we'd like.
Okay,
That's about the main thing I have.
great. Thanks, Reed. Jessica?
We've got our Community Preparedness Committee meeting next week to plan our next event, and no major legislative updates right now, but I have the board meeting for the Utah League of Cities and Towns on Monday, so we'll get some new insights then. That's it.
Great, thank you. Casey?
Nothing for me.
All right, Leslie?
No report.
Darren?
Nothing for me.
All right, Madison? Corey? Wow. All right. We'll look for a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilman Garrett. All in favor?
Yes.
Garrett,
yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.